Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining our session today. I'm Nicole Quain, Digital Marketing Manager at MCI USA. And I'm excited to have with me today for Association Solutions experts, Jay Blankenship, Rachel Dillion, Bill Lemon, and our moderator, Carrie Harton, who will be discussing building your growth capacity with strategic staffing. Before we get to it, I do have a few housekeeping notes. We would love to see you. So if you do feel comfortable, please turn on your camera. We'd like this presentation to be as interactive as possible. Throughout this presentation, we will be using Menti polls to get your insights. So you are encouraged to participate and share your thoughts. Please go to www.menti.com and look for the code at the top of the polling screen. We welcome your questions and comments, so please use the chat to let us know your thoughts and ask any questions that you might have. And lastly, this session is being recorded, so you will receive an email with the recording following the presentation. So with that, I'm thrilled to pass it over to our moderator, Carrie Harton, the president of MCI USA Sales and Solution Services. Carrie, take it away.
Wonderful. Great to be able to see everybody today. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time and joining us today. We're thrilled to have a chance to talk to you about what our experience has been over the last year in helping organizations team up and build capacity in the work that they are doing. Over the last 3 days, nearly every headline that I have read has related to rebounding post-pandemic, which is thrilling after the last year plus that we have spent at home. But oftentimes when I'm talking to companies and when I'm talking to associations, I find that that leaves them in a spot though where they're saying, I'm not sure how we get all of that done if we're in the middle of starting to rebound and grow again. This webinar today, I'll give you some great examples and ideas of how we've worked with other organizations to help fill some of the gaps that they have, whether that has to do with delivering capacity around virtual events or figuring out digital agility to be able to effectively move forward and build their organization for the future. Those are all the types of topics that we'll cover today. We've got three incredible presenters joining us. Bill Lemon, who is a part of our strategic events, meetings, and incentives team here at MCI. Rachel Dillion, who's a part of our association solutions team. And Jay Blankenship, who's part of our sales solutions team. Let's go ahead and get started. We would love to start today by hearing just a little bit from you in terms of, what you all are experiencing right now within your company and organization. So if you think about the work that you're doing today, go ahead and let us know where your biggest gap in capacity currently sits. You can go to menti.com. The code is in the top part of our screen here, but let's see what a little bit of the feedback is, whether that falls into the people bucket, the technology bucket, strategy, or like most people I talk to, a bit of the all of the above. Let's see what we get back. Right.
Already with all of the above.
It's the temple rubbing part there, I think that we can all relate to. Or my favorite is when I'm on a conference call and I see somebody just put two hands over their eyes and start rubbing their forehead. There is no doubt, though, that I think everybody has a gap that they've got to fill somewhere. There you go, people making a lead. And it's interesting to see that potentially over the last year, people have figured out technology in a lot of meaningful ways. But people, or the mix of all of the above, seems to really be what is moving ahead today. All right. Thank you so much for your feedback. We'll have a total of 3 polls today, so keep your menti.com tab open. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at the people gap. So often when I go to hire for a new position, I realize that I want a person who can do everything from strategy down to coordination, as well as building standard operating procedures and implementation plans all in the middle. It doesn't work to find one person that can do that. And so sometimes when we think about building capacity, we've really got to take a look at where an organization can bring that capacity and replace that mentality of, I've got enough budget to be able to bring in one additional staff person, to I've got to look at somebody who can take that budget and fill and help us in a bunch of different areas. Jay, tell us a little bit more about the work that you've done with Avixa.
Sure, thanks, Carrie. So Yeah, we were had an opportunity to work with Avixa in the pro AV space, and this organization was taking on a big transitional moment. They were bringing in a new AMS system to run the backbone of their organization. They were enhancing their opportunities to build marketing automation to talk to their members as well as their vendor community. And then they were also splitting and reorganizing their sales operations and organization. So all of those things happening at once, nothing like taking on a good challenge times 3. But quickly, they had realized that they needed some people to come in and help in just particular instances from a point A to point B scenario. And I was very fortunate to be working alongside the group and implanted really shoulder to shoulder in their offices on a weekly basis to be working alongside their staff in an observation and as well as recommendation state to enhance their sales team and talent, find gaps in workflow and process, and make recommendations for improvement, and even down to through the end of the process, working to build training and product materials and standard operating documents that this project can live way past our exit. So really giving them the foundation they needed to make the turn quickly, and then move on to bigger and better successes in front of them. So very fortunate opportunity to really come in and put on my orange instead of my pink from MCI, and put on my orange from Avixa, which is their signature color, and be a part of the team. And it was very welcoming and a great opportunity.
You know, so often when I find us serving a role that is a people role, there is a point where we come in and we do just what you described, that kind of shoulder to shoulder work over a period of time, and then really work on that effective plan that allows them to take that work and run with it moving forward. It's that point A to point B part where we can fill and help them move really fast to solve a problem, but then allow them to have all of the resources that they need to take it and own it and make it their future success as part of it. Great, awesome. Rachel, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the people work, where we've been able to help build capacity with the International LGBTQ+ Association.
Definitely, Carrie. Thank you. So with IGLTA, the International LGBTQ Travel Association, they recognized that they needed additional bandwidth and especially expertise around membership. So they were growing quickly, and they did that kind of self-reflection, realized that they did need a partner. And so what MCI is doing for IGLTA, is serving as their membership arm, effectively leading recruitment and all of their retention efforts. So it's both the strategy and the implementation piece. So Carrie, that gets to what you were speaking about at the beginning, where instead of, just going for one single hire, engaging a partner like MCI has allowed this organization to be able to tap into both that strategic and implementation side of things. And just like Jay was saying, we've really been able to embed ourselves into the work with IGLTA, and it's grown into a nearly 4-year relationship and partnership.
Wow, great to be able to see where we've been able to fill that specialty and gap for a group, and really just bring, quite frankly, the heart of so much of the day-to-day work that we do to a group who says, that's not my day-to-day, and I need somebody who can do it exceedingly well. Awesome. Well, great. I would love to hear again from the people that are on our webinar today. If you are thinking about your staffing and hiring outlook for this year, where does your organization stand right now? I know for us, we're back in the position where we're able to actively recruit, which is a lot of fun because that hadn't been the case for the last year. But we'd love to hear what this looks like for you as you think about the future. Yep. A handful of people that are actively recruiting. Great to see that at this point, we don't have anybody that's saying really just kind of holding still until Q3 and Q4. I find that so many organizations are doing a really careful balance right now, right? Can we bring in staff and do we have the right position to put the right exceedingly great talent in there to be able to succeed? Do we need to hold off a little bit longer? Do we just need an interim step to potentially be able to get us through? So, the job market, no doubt, is picking back up. And so I find that even in places where organizations are actively recruiting, it can sometimes take them 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks to get the perfect new hire in place. Oftentimes the skill set that they needed yesterday was no longer the skill set that they'll need for for tomorrow. Sometimes there's a place where even a group like MCI can actually serve that capacity need really well in that interim time period, so that when you have the right person and you bring them in, we can turn that work back over to them and they can hit the ground running. Great, thanks for participating. Let's move ahead and take a look at the next area where we often see the need for technology. So, it's funny, MCI, I often say, is not a technology company. We don't deliver technology solutions, but we, just like every other corporation and association, work and use and leverage technology every single day. And so often over this last year, we've seen people with things like virtual event platforms, right? And they say, great, do we go it alone and figure it out as we work along the way? Or do we potentially work with a company that's already leveraged the platform before, has trained staff in place that understands how to use that technology in a really meaningful way, and even in some cases can provide us better pricing or access to the technology that we need. And so sometimes capacity around technology is not just about putting the technology solution in place, it's actually putting the team in place that knows how to use that technology and bring it to life so that your organization doesn't have to do all the trial and error on their own. This is our third poll of the day, and so would love to hear a little bit about the types of technologies that you are currently evaluating for 2020. So go back to menti.com. Are you looking at learning management systems, community platforms, marketing automation, association management, virtual event platforms? In so many cases, I think the last year has been all about virtual event platforms, and I feel like now that we're again starting to talk about post-pandemic, associations are going back to some of those other core needs. And so I love thinking about things like marketing automation tools, which for us in our sales work is just so critical to success. And there are so many great pieces of technology out there that can help marketers and sales teams be so much more effective in their jobs. Just this morning, I sat in on a technology piece that related to conferencing solutions. And so for me, I'm still doing, sit-ins and demos regularly to look at what kind of technology is out there influencing and improving organizations. Well, it looks like virtual event platforms and marketing automation is what's in the lead for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would love to hear just a little bit more, Rachel, about some of the work that you have done with the Special Libraries Association and how that partnership between technology and really where we've needed to build capacity and depth for the organization has come together.
Absolutely. So with the Special Libraries Association is the example I'm going to talk about here. It's the perfect blend of how without people, the technology can really fall flat. So you need that piece, that people piece to bring things together and take the implementation to the next step. So they were facing a problem, a common problem, I probably believe in the association world, especially over the last year. They had a ton of digital content. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of virtual content. You hop on a Zoom and you click record, then what happens to that content? So they had recordings housed in Zoom. Over 17,000% of the storage was full on Zoom. They had some recordings in GoToWebinar. And then they had an LMS. They had just purchased the LMS and had done an initial dump of about 100 files into the learning management system, but nothing was organized. There was content coming from every direction, and the time had not been spent to really set the LMS up to get that learning management system going. So again, the money invested in the technology, if it's not spent on people as well, it often falls flat. So what did we do? After all of this, kind of diving into all of the content, we reviewed all of the content. We placed it in categories for easy searching, hidden keywords, visible keywords, and really standardized the way that the information was entered into the LMS. We also monetized the content. So content that was living, for example, on YouTube for free, or if it was just housed as a Zoom recording and that Zoom link was being floated around the internet, now that content uploaded to their learning management system lives there, and that also links to their AMS, their association management software. So that gives insight into user behavior. We're able to see what kind of content people like, what their actively searching for, what they're purchasing, and then put a plan in place for future content. So now there's a standard operating procedure. If an event happens and it's recorded, we know exactly what to do with it, so it doesn't just sit in Zoom or GoToWebinar. And obviously the visual thing here is we rebranded it, the whole look and feel, to give the learner a much more enjoyable journey as they navigate all this content.
Rachel, I remember probably about a decade ago when a lot of organizations found that their website had become the single place where they were housing all of their content. They didn't want to get rid of it because they felt like the 10 years of archived information was going to be really important. But at the end of the day, it actually just made it clunky, made it hard for people to find what they needed, heavy, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the right place for them to store that type of permanent record that they thought maybe their website should be. And this example from SLA sounds like the exact same thing, right? That place where content has just exploded, but you've got to turn it into something meaningful that you can then drive engagement or monetization for your association.
Definitely.
Awesome. Great to be able to hear. Bill, why don't you tell us just a little bit about the work that we've delivered to the American Economic Forum? And I know for that group, it really came around their live meeting and event.
Correct. So this year, American Economic Association was doing their annual meeting, and we're doing it through a virtual platform. Actually, they had, their problem was they were doing it all through Zoom, had 60 concurrent sessions, but really didn't have the staffing or the tech ability to really provide the right tech support for that many concurrent sessions. So they looked at a company like MCI to really be that tech work option for them. So what we ended up doing, the solution we provided for them was really looking at their Zoom concurrent sessions. And what we assigned was one tech per 2 Zoom sessions. And what the tech would do is allow the presenter to come in. We would actually go through the process and make sure everything was able to see their videos, it's clear, their voice is clear, make sure their PowerPoint presentation was able to go. And then we would turn it over to them, hit record, and at the conclusion of the session, we would stop the recording and then go on to the next room for them. We did that with 32 techs for 60 concurrent sessions. One thing we did prior to all this, we created our own video for all their attendees and their presenters. And that allowed them to kind of go through the process without anybody there and kind of play around with it. So between the video and the tech work, that's really the solution we provided to American Economic Association.
Wow, that's great to be able to see. You know, one of the huge winners in virtual over the last year has been content and education, right? So when you talk about 60 concurrent sessions, there are absolutely associations out there that know that that volume of concurrent sessions and content is what's driving significant attendance and volume and engagement in their virtual event. But the reality for any person that has been in conference and meeting planning is it's just a massive volume of work to do. And technology is great when it's great and when it works really well. And when it's not, you're delivering somebody an experience that you don't want. And so to be able to have a team that can deliver just both the technical expertise, the quality control that needs to come around that for their user experience is awesome to be able to see. I've talked to multiple meeting planners who said, look, we had to extend our event out over 8 weeks or 4 weeks because we actually couldn't deliver the quality of content of 60 concurrent sessions over that period of time. And so I think those are the places where capacity through an outside provider, even like MCI, can really allow somebody to deliver that content in the time frame that they want.
Carrie, awesome. I even think about it in places where groups don't know what to be looking for, right? So a lot of these things are not built apples to apples, and so it's hard to know what should I be asking for, what questions should I be learning from my demos out there. So it's hard to start to have that list put together as to what you need when you actually don't know what you need sometimes, and then it gets really twisted easily. So
like American Economic, they chose not a particular virtual platform and tried to do it through I believe it was 92 Zoom licenses. So that's a little bit more, trying to do it a little bit more inexpensively, but ended up, come to a point where they needed additional help, and that's where we came in.
Yep, absolutely. It's so funny. When you're making technology decisions, sometimes you don't actually realize that you're all at the same time making a decision about where you're going to need something more somewhere else. And I think having resources that you can go to that have expertise in a lot of different areas allow you to find that solution pretty quickly. Great. The third place that we wanted to spend a little bit of time on today when we think about capacity comes down to strategy. Associations are really good at strategy. They've done strategic planning. They often turn to outside experts for that strategic planning. But I see time and time again where there is a need to build in strategy in very specific vertical areas within an organization. And I think that's a place where the outside help of another organization or an outside expert can make a significant difference. In the world that I live in, that sometimes comes into the strategy around revenue, right? But it can look like a lot of different things. Bill, talk a little bit about some of the ways that we're hearing the need for organizations that actually need financial capacity when they are thinking about what the future of their trade show might be. I mean, at this point, we've got groups that will not have a live trade show, large trade show event for 2 years running based on the pandemic. Where do you see financial flexibility and capacity coming in?
So one of the things we kind of see that you look at through what associations are going through right now. Like you said, 2 rotations without that revenue. And a lot of associations, the live event revenue is actually the biggest driver of revenue for the association. It could be as low as 30 to 40%, but it could be as high as 70%. Wow. And if you don't see those revenues, it's hard to maintain your staffing and your employment to, continue down, move forward without making some pretty drastic cuts. So what MCI has done is created what you call the Association Investment Fund. So what that allows is an association to look somebody like MCI, get some financial resources up front, and then be able to fractionalize the employment of our MCI employees to really provide a solution that is both economical, but also gives the association some revenue up front to continue to operate on the bigger mission of the association, which is whether it's stuff on Capitol Hill, it's other education resources outside the environment. The association fund is basically gives money up front. In return, MCI will perform their live events for a period of time, usually 3 to 4 years, utilizing all our internal services, whether it's sales solutions, whether it's staffing, whether it's housing registration opportunities. MCI would provide all those services for the association for a period of time. At the conclusion, when the environment is a little bit more healthy, the association will have the ability to continue their relationship with MCI or have the ability to buy back that revenue that we shared previously 3 or 4 years prior. So it gives an opportunity that we have financial resources that most associations don't have and revenue opportunities. And we have services we can fractionalize so we can have multiple people on a particular event ramp up and ramp down accordingly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been talking to groups that have to bring a trade show back here in the end of 2021 and then deliver the same thing again in the beginning of 2022. And they said, when you look at that, it's an incredible amount of work that has to happen within that time frame. And so, if they don't have the financial resources to really be able to invest to make that happen, they are looking for other sources of funding that can help give them the injection of cash and then even the staffing support that can allow them to make that happen. And so I think it's just a great alternative and a different way of thinking about what financial capacity could look like.
And that might prevent an association going to the bank and get a letter of credit, or a lot of the time that happen as a interest-bearing loan. And in this sense, it's basically allowing MCI to utilize their resources to fractionalize the employment, but then at the back end, share some of the revenue opportunities to continue to move forward.
Yeah, it also keeps associations, quite frankly, from having to potentially sell their largest asset in full, right? And so that's usually a move that many organizations don't want to make, especially when it's been part of the calling card to their industry.
Definitely.
Awesome. Great. Jay, would love to hear a little bit more about the work that we have done, the strategic work with an organization like NACS.
Sure. we worked with the National Association for Convenience Stores in a capacity where they were having problems basically taking out to market the vast number of products that they had. So they have a really great and robust product suite for media that ranges everything from digital to event media to standing print publication. They have directories, like you name it, they've got it, and which is great. They're answering the need of their market, but they were seeing places where it was hard for their sales team, a very talented and great sales team, to get the needle moving above a certain point. They were reaching a ceiling that they could not figure out why that ceiling really was there and existing. And so then we got into conversation and started talking to them about some strategic realignment and rebranding, marketing, really more than anything, of their story, and really starting to talk about the value of the audience that was being lost in the translation among close to, I think it was 15 to 20 different sales sheets that you could get from one of their sales reps when you're asking about product. And so when we're working with them, that we were able to really transform their story and highlight the unique selling propositions of their audience and the value that was bringing to their vendor community, and then repackaging that in what we would call a web-based media planner. And so there's an example sitting here of just basically how we made this very much more a visual forward presentation. It was working and building on the sophistication of their buyers, which in this market, they do have a lot of agency buys and also some of the larger national corporations that were coming in. And it was hard for them to get through the different PDF flyers, but to go to a one-stop solution like this online media planner, and then be able to sort by audience, by goal, by solution, by property, and find what they needed to find. And then in turn, link all of this up into a marketing automation system that when someone's just coming in and started doing some of that research or finding their way to this media planner, whether that be organically or through direct pushes, that the sales team then had the backside data, the knowledge that what they were looking at and how they could best guide that conversation when they engage with them. So it was just a great experience for us to be able to work along a group with such a dynamic field and be able to really help them find clarity and find direction, and then to really just amplify what they're doing. So it was a great experience all the way around.
You know, it's not unusual to have people that are incredibly talented with the work that they do day in and day out. But when you are living that job, it can be really hard to say, great, here's how we need to take our, sales and marketing resources and take them up to the next level, or start to leverage data in a more meaningful way to inform how we sell. And so I think that sometimes it is the capacity and the knowledge of somebody that can bring that fresh look, and then also to be able to, quite frankly, implement the solution quickly for you that can make all of the difference, right? PDFs are time consuming and clunky. It's easy to have outdated ones. Being able to move into a web-based format just allows somebody to, quite frankly, have something that's much more relevant and significantly easier to maintain. So awesome to be able to deliver back to them some of those long-term savings that they're able to get from it.
I think the other thing that was really nice here as well, Carrie, was the ability for us to utilize a creative suite outside of their own. They have a great creative team in-house, but they were underwater trying to keep up with all the day-to-day work that was needing to come from the association, from membership to all the other pieces. So being able to take a project like this that could easily been a 6 to 8 month project inside of their in-house group and take it out and get it done in 3 to 5 to 6 weeks was something that we were able to do for them, and they were back in the market, selling quickly right in the timeline that they needed to be before their big annual meeting. So really great.
Excellent. Awesome. Great to be able to hear. Rachel, I'd love to be able to hear from you just any examples of where we've really been able to step in on strategy and help move an organization forward quickly.
Absolutely, Carrie. So we are currently working with the XR Association. And this is a new association in the XR virtual reality space. So given that they are new, their staff is busy getting things up and running. It's a growing, very busy industry. They're doing a lot of strategy, policy, and advocacy work.
Yep.
They're so new, in fact, that they do not have an annual or a showcase event. So they recognize the need for that in order to establish their kind of stake in the marketplace. So they have engaged us to essentially develop from the ground up their annual showcase event. So this is really a great tie-in of the people, the tech, and the strategy. They simply do not have the bandwidth. The people, we're out there conducting hours and hours of interviews, doing focus groups, competitive analysis of the industry, putting that all together and synthesizing that information to build them a roadmap to move forward with this event. So I think it's just a great example of how all of those things can come together and how we can slip right into any organization and meet their needs strategically.
Yeah, absolutely. And then really even, as I noted earlier, be able to deliver back to them that roadmap that allows them to take that and use that year upon year to continue to grow and build their next success. Awesome to be able to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So, before we open this up for questions, I just want to take a moment to thank Rachel and Bill and Jay. Their insights, I think, are really helpful, and I am just blown away by the ways that we can be a creative partner to an association that typically has just such incredible expertise, but they need somebody that maybe can help them expand their team. We talk a lot about capacity, and I was talking to a person on my team the other day, and they said, look, there isn't any more capacity in what I'm doing. And so, for us, we started saying, great, what are the other options that are out there so that we, can continue to get the support and resources that are needed, if we don't have enough of those people in place. And it's amazing how creative that you can become finding partners and finding other experts that can help leverage some of that. Nikki, would love to hear if there are any questions for our presenters.
We can open it up the chat now for questions. So if anyone has thoughts to share or a hand to raise, please feel free to do that now. And we're happy to have our panelists address this for you guys. It looks like we have one in the chat. How can you determine if a goal requires a one-time project-based solution versus a full-time staff commitment?
Yep, absolutely. Rachel, why don't you go ahead and take that one for us?
I think that's something that we can help determine with that partner. So if it's something that has an end date, you have your conference coming up in October, you need specific staff for a specific end goal in mind, then that lends itself to more of the project-based work. If it's something where you're looking for infill staffing to support your customer service efforts, that could be more of an ongoing basis. And when we're saying a full-time staff commitment, I think what we need to recognize is that with MCI is it doesn't have to be a full-time person. You might be, getting 25% of someone, which works out great for the client because instead of having to make that full-time hire, you're able to leverage the existing staffing resources that we have here.
Awesome. Great to be able to hear. Jay, anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I would say that very, very similarly in the sales arena, oftentimes there's a great sales team in place, but they need to be able to pivot. I hate to use the word, but to pivot in a way that's different to move them to the next stage or be trained in a certain way. Definitely, I've been in places where project-based work had an end date and an initial scope of work, but then grew from there when other needs had expanded. But at the end of the day, a marginal piece of my time or a staff member's time was used to get that there, and someone wasn't on full-time salary with benefits and all the things that you would need to have to bring someone in for that work, and then go, wait, now the project's over, and what do I do with this person? How do I repurpose them? We can still be partners and still be friends and still continue to be alongside with you.
Yep, absolutely. Nikki, any other questions that have come through the chat or anybody else that's unmuted and wants to raise a hand?
I did see that earlier in the chat. There was, a comment about looking into multiple technology solutions. So I do know that, there's sort of seeking if other folks may be looking into that as well. So I don't know if anyone wants to chime in and kind of talk about what they're doing, but that's a great opportunity to engage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny when we think about things like technology. I know there are places where, if we've already evaluated 10 platforms or 10 different conferencing solutions, right? And somebody's turning to us to help be that integrator on technology. If we've already done the legwork, that's just time that we can save them and then really focus on how quickly we can deliver the solution for them.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Wonderful. Well, one, I want to thank everybody for giving a little bit of your time today. The goals that we have all collectively set within our companies and our associations and organizations, we've got about 250 days left here before the end of 2021. And so, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I don't know if our team has the depth to be able to deliver everything that we need, think through some of the creative places where, a group like MCI might be able to add to that capacity in a meaningful way. It can be a short run. It can be something that we, jump into long term. But I think it's one of the places where organizations can find ways to move faster, quite frankly. And I do believe that the speed of the work that we do, while the last year has been, grueling for so many, I think speed is going to really pick up and change here. We're going to start competing with people's time and attention again relative to travel and live events, something we haven't had to do. And it's going to be important to have the right resources in place to be able to make all of your plans the right reality for 2021. Thank you for your time today. Hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone, again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.